Chapter 1: The Co-ed Killer. In the early 1970s, a quiet college town in Washington was shaken by a series of brutal murders. At the center of this horror was a charming young man named Ted Bundy. On the surface, he appeared to be a charismatic and well-mannered law student, but beneath that facade lay a monster. Bundy's first known victim was 18-year-old Linda Mae Healy. She disappeared in January 1974 while attending the University of Washington. Her case set off a wave of panic in the community, but it was only the beginning. Bundy's method was chillingly calculated. He would often approach his victims in public places, feigning injury or asking for help. Once he gained their trust, he would abduct them, dragging them into a nightmare they could never escape. Over the next few years, Bundy claimed the lives of at least 30 young women, his victims often sharing similar traits: long hair parted in the middle, a youthful appearance, and a vulnerability that he exploited ruthlessly. As the body count rose, the authorities struggled to catch him, and Bundy became adept at evading capture. He would change his appearance, moving from state to state, all while continuing his gruesome spree. In 1978, Bundy approached a young woman named Kim Leach at a high school in Florida. He lured her into his car under the guise of needing help. That would be the last time Kim was seen alive. Bundy later confessed to burying her body in a nearby swamp, but by then he had already left a trail of horror in his wake. After a series of close calls with law enforcement, Bundy was finally arrested in 1978. His trial was a media sensation, drawing attention from all over the country. As he sat in the courtroom, he exuded a confidence that belied the monstrous acts he had committed. But as the evidence mounted against him, the facade began to crumble. Bundy was convicted and sentenced to death. Even then, he continued to manipulate those around him, claiming innocence and providing false leads in hopes of buying time. His charm, however, could not save him. In January 1989, he was executed in the electric chair, leaving behind a legacy of fear and tragedy that would haunt the nation for decades. Chapter 2: The Green River Killer. Gary Ridgway, known as the Green River Killer, was one of the most notorious serial killers in American history. Over 2 decades, he murdered at least 49 women, most of whom were sex workers in Washington state. Ridgway's killing spree began in the early 1980s, a time when many women went missing in the area, leaving families and friends desperate for answers. Ridgway's modus operandi was disturbingly methodical. He would often pick up women along Pacific Highway South, promising them money for sex. Once in his vehicle, he would drive them to secluded areas where he would strangle them, then dump their bodies in the Green River or other remote locations. He was meticulous in his approach, often returning to the scene to have sex with the corpses, showcasing a level of depravity that left investigators baffled. For years, law enforcement struggled to connect the dots. Ridgway was married and led a seemingly normal life as a truck painter, expertly hiding his dark secret. It wasn't until 2001, when DNA evidence linked him to some of the victims, that he was finally arrested. During his interrogation, Ridgway displayed an unsettling calmness as he confessed to the killings, revealing a chilling lack of remorse. "I killed so many women," he said matter-of-factly. "I lost count." The true horror of his crimes began to unfold as he detailed the locations of the bodies, many of which had never been discovered. Ridgway's confessions revealed a disturbing pattern of violence and control, and he even provided information about other potential victims, leaving investigators reeling. In a plea deal to avoid the death penalty, Ridgway agreed to lead authorities to the remains of his victims. He was ultimately sentenced to 49 life terms in prison without the possibility of parole. The Green River Killer's chilling legacy continues to haunt the families of the victims, a stark reminder of the horrors lurking beneath the surface of society. Chapter 3: A Killer in the Closet. In the early 1990s, a young woman named Angel Maturino Resendez, known as the Railroad Killer, unleashed terror across the United States. He was a transient, hopping freight trains as he traveled from one city to another, leaving a trail of bloodshed in his wake. Resendez targeted victims who lived near railroads, often breaking into their homes while they slept. His methods were brutal and swift. He would bludgeon his victims with blunt objects, killing them before they had a chance to react. Resendez showed no mercy, often attacking entire families. One of his most heinous crimes occurred in 1998 when he invaded the home of a couple in Texas. He killed the husband and wife before brutally attacking their teenage daughter, who had come downstairs upon hearing the commotion. Of his attacks left communities in fear, as no one knew who might be next. Resendez was elusive, but his luck eventually ran out. In 1999, he was arrested after a series of tips from the public led the police to him. During interrogation, he displayed a disturbing sense of pride about his killings, recounting the details with a chilling nonchalance. In 2001, Resendez was convicted of multiple counts of murder and received the death penalty. His trial revealed the terrifying reality of his life as a drifter, a man who preyed on the vulnerable and left devastation in his wake. The families of his victims were left to pick up the shattered pieces, their lives forever altered by the brutality of his crimes. In June 2006, Resendez was executed by lethal injection, marking the end of a horrific chapter in America's history of serial killers. The fear he instilled in communities across the nation lingered long after his death, a chilling reminder of the darkness that can dwell within even the most ordinary individuals.
If you like this type of videos, please subscribe to our channel. We will upload a new horror and mystery story every week.